Hi there, Kate Bora and Fiona Pearman joining you for our final video in this series about fixing the system. And today we want to talk about the very powerful combination of reworking, challenging, and implementing structures and systemic change, as well as uplifting the capability and of leaders and resourcing women to navigate the systems that they're part of. And first, we really want to flag that this is not an either or, it's an and conversation. How do we support organizations to put in more equitable systems through structures, processes, through translating conversations around responsibility, of it not being a HR thing, but actually being something that the whole organization, the whole of system is responsible for and involved in, which we know is critical to designing sustainable systemic change. But we also want to talk about supporting women to come in and to navigate that system. And in navigating the system, they are also stimulating the system to change as well from the bottom up. And so our ability to have a whole of system approach is what is extremely powerful and most importantly effective when we think about how to fix the system.
Yes, the willingness to look at all the elements and include all the elements to translate something and to transition from something that's quite deeply entrenched and embedded. And so looking at what we need and what we require. And this can't just be an HR or a DEI initiative. It can't sit in one part of the organization. This is the work for all leaders. We need leaders themselves to be invested in and to want to build these more equitable systems. We know humans resist processes unless they can really appreciate and understand why it matters to them. And so we start by saying, let's uplift the leadership capability in your organization. Let's really teach them and support them to think and lead systemically. This includes shifting the lens from focusing in down here into the individual to being reflective and thinking about the system we're part of. An example is we tend to be very quick to judge the person, to judge the behavior. They're underperforming, they haven't achieved this, they haven't done that. And a great question to ask in those circumstances, particularly if it's an ongoing issue presenting itself, is what's present in this system that may be causing this behavior? We start to dig beneath and we start to look for things that maybe are not apparent. And this leads us to looking for making what may be invisible more visible. A big piece of this is the unwritten rules that are often existing in organisation. What are the norms? What actually leads and drives success in this organisation? Is it what we say it is, or are there other factors that we need to be conscious of? Where's power and influence lie? Who has it and why, and how is it exercised? When we talk about networks and advantage and access, who gets sponsorship, who is helped along the way, being really conscious of some of the systems that will mean some people are more naturally put forward than others.
Yeah, I think one of the things I love most about um, coaching and teaching this work is uh, this really has leaders leaning into curiosity and away from judgment. And I think that is a really powerful mindset to bring to leadership. We need to resist a lot of our default beliefs, assumptions, behaviors that will try really hard to override this. But when we really step into a space of curiosity, to start to raise our awareness around what is going on in this system, we talk about, noticing patterns, like where are there parts of the organization, roles, functions where women consistently drop out. That gives us a cue that it's actually not about the person, it's about the dynamics operating in the system that make it untenable for women of a particular skill set and or a life stage to be able to progress or stay in that part of the organization. Look at where there's patterns of feedback around perhaps people not being ready, women not being ready for roles, or where perhaps there's consistent comments around what success looks like. Our ability to see the patterns can be really good clues around perhaps some of the interventions that at an organizational level we need to implement to be able to create some changes. For example, looking at our recruitment process. It might be that we need to do something different in a particular, it may not be widespread, it may be in a particular function that we really need to zero in and invest time, energy, and resource to be able to put some structural change in there to support the operation in that system. I think role modeling and building capability in others. Yes, we want to be curious as leaders ourselves, but we also want to be building that capability, that ability to be aware of how the system is operating, to have that curiosity in our direct reports as well. So talking about your experience, noticing patterns that you're seeing, what might be going on, sharing perhaps blind spots, things you previously couldn't see, but that have become visible to you. We talk a lot about being your own best coach, but equally you being able to ask really good questions of your team to help raise their awareness around maybe the invisible judgments that we're making decisions based on, the patterns that they're seeing. And we really, your ability to build this capability within your team will support not just you, but the whole of organization approach to this.
Yeah, there's such a big opportunity for leaders here to expand their own capability and for that to have a ripple effect across the system. And we know once leaders see this work themselves, once they expand their own self-awareness, they can see the ways in which potentially they've got caught in, fast judgment, default beliefs and assumptions. As they raise their awareness, as they think about things differently, they are then more likely to use that awareness and influence to open doors. We know that lots of careers are dependent on access and advocacy, and this is not always distributed fairly. So as leaders, and particularly, we still have more male leaders than female leaders at this moment, which means we need those men to actively sponsor high potential women, particularly those women who are underrepresented, to ensure we've got visibility in key projects and decision forums, to introduce rising, emerging talent to those influential networks and create space for more diverse voices in those conversations and decisions. And when we're doing that, we see that those women are more likely to have opportunities and be progressed. At the same time, we've got a big job to resource the women who are currently in the system. They've been raised, they've been experiencing, they've been exposed to a whole lot of default beliefs, assumptions, normalizations, societal expectations. And so we need to undo some of that work. We need to be willing to resource women so that they are able to show up differently. We see in all of our programs, whether they're in-house in organizations or our external women in leadership or coaching programs, that once we resource women effectively, they show up differently. They influence systems. They have a different relationship with power. They have more presence, and they certainly speak up with more clarity and authority. They're able to influence and persuade. They set and hold boundaries well. They know how to prioritize, and they know how to have the conversations around that in a way that lands well. And so they're not just about progressing themselves individually. They actually become the leaders and catalysts for change inside their organizations.
Yeah, I think that's why we are so passionate about this work and about this lever in terms of creating sustainable change in teams, in organizations, and importantly in society as well. When we have women at an individual level challenging the status quo, they give other women permission to do things differently. They challenge entrenched thinking in organizations that has the potential to redesign process, to force an organization to challenge behavior. And so what we start to do is bring to light a lot of what remains underneath the surface, and for what most organizations will overlook, not through choice, but because some of this stuff will be uncomfortable to lean into and will be hard. And with all the sorts of pressures going on in organizations that we're asking of leaders and organizations, this can be too hard for them to take on, right? It can be tempting just to stick with the surface level tick and flick initiatives that, mean that we can say we're doing things, but not really dealing with the deep stuff. This is big work. It requires a lot of everybody, and that's how we create sustainable system change. It's not about choosing between changing structures and supporting individuals. It's both. Progress happens when organizations design, embed, hold people accountable and relentlessly pursue equitable structures. It happens when leaders are supported and held accountable for being part of this change and given the capabilities to be able to, recognize the systemic and structural barriers and to be able to have really good conversations and make conscious decisions informed by that awareness. And importantly, when we resource women who are in the system, who are navigating the barriers, the systems and the structures that they're encountering, to be able to challenge the status quo, but importantly, have a different experience for themselves personally, for their own benefit and for the benefit of the organisation as well.
We're going to leave it there. If you've enjoyed today's confidence conversation, or you know someone in your network who would benefit from hearing about it, we'd love you to share it with them or tag them below. If you'd like to see more of these conversations, subscribe to our Core Confidence YouTube channel, where you can access hundreds of videos just like this and hear some of our alumni speak about their experiences, how they've been resourced, how they're changing the systems they're part of. And when you're ready to go deeper with your relationship with Core Confidence, visit our website, coreconfidence.com.au.
Thanks for tuning in today. Don't forget to hit subscribe on your YouTube channel for more insights on confidence, leadership, and complex work environments. We drop new videos regularly, and we'd love to share them with you.